The Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Redmond-Waldeyer, the Poetry Director, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all here today. I want to thank my predecessor, Maria Mazziotti-Gillen, for years of leadership and vision, and I also want to honor Dr. Stephen Rose, who served as president of Passaic County Community College until his passing just this March. Many of you may not have known him personally, but his support for the arts shaped this series for many years. We're grateful as well to the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, whose support allows us to bring these wonderful poets together. I'd like to introduce our first award-winning poet, Joan Kwon Glass. She is a diasporic, mixed-race Korean-American poet, author of the poetry collection Daughter of Three Gone Kingdoms, which won the 2025 Paterson Poetry Prize and the Eric Hoffer Book Award for Poetry, and was the finalist for the 2025 Balcones Poetry Prize. Her book, Night Swim, won the 2021 Diode Book Prize. Joan's poems have been featured on NPR and in Poetry, The Slowdown, Poetry Daily, Passages North, Poetry Northwest, Korea Quarterly, Best American Poetry, Prairie Schooner, and elsewhere. She has been featured reader at the Westchester Poetry Festival, the Boston Book Festival, and Mass Poetry, and is a 2025 SWWIM writer in residence. Joan has served or is scheduled to serve as a visiting writer at Amherst College, Smith College, Wesleyan University, the New School, Westchester University, Connecticut, and elsewhere. She teaches workshops at Brooklyn Poets, Poets House, and Hudson Valley Writers Center, and lives in Milford, Connecticut. I'd like to welcome Joan today. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Is that good volume? Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. And thank you to all of you for coming out on a Saturday for poetry. I love that for us. And I'm really very, very happy to be here. So I'm going to read, all of the poems that I'll read today are from my book, Daughter of Three Gone Kingdoms, except for the very last poem, because there are no happy poems in this book. And I hate ending on total silence, which is usually what happens to me when I read my poems. So there's one that I have that I'll read from a different collection. But this book is, oh my gosh. This book is kind of like my life. It's just a hodgepodge of my life is what it feels like. The other books that I've written were about very specific narratives or very specific experiences, and they were laser focused on those experiences. This book is really just kind of like the experience of me in my family, the experience of my family history, and of feeling very often like I have been on the outside of things. So I think that has often been the case in my life because my mother's side of the family is Korean. My father's side of the family, my father is a working class white guy from Detroit. He's 6'5", this enormous dude who spent much of my life in prison. And my mother is 5 feet tall, an evangelical Christian who has never had a drink in her life. That can be a confusing way to grow up. So I often felt as a child I was almost on the wrong planet a lot of the time, except that there wasn't a planet where I belonged. It was strange. It was strange to be me as a child. So I'm going to start with the opening poem in the book. It's called Bloodline. And I really wanted this poem to be the first poem in the book because there isn't another poem, I think, that can better introduce a book about my life so far. Here is Bloodline, which is based in an origin, one of the Korean origin stories. The god Hanyong begged his father to let him leave heaven and inhabit earth, and his wish was granted. On Mount Tabaksön, he met Ongnyo the bear, who passed the test to eat only mugwort and garlic for 21 days, then was transformed into a woman. She and Hwanyong gave birth to Dangun, founder of the Neolithic Gojoseon Kingdom, earliest known human civilization of Korea. The first Koreans were part god, part beast. Every morning, I look into the mirror and ask, which will I be today? The next poem I'm going to read is called Black Cows. It's actually the second poem in the book, and I think it's an important poem for the book because it provides kind of a historical foundation for haunting and lineage and a lot of the ways in which the events of my life, they lent a lens to the events that took place in my life as I came to understand Korean history and the history of my family. This is Black Cows, and it starts in Jeju Island, 1910 to 1945. During the occupation, they burned our history. 200,000 years of records gone. The Japanese taxed the abalone that pearl divers had scoured the ocean for since the Dark Ages. Nearly 200,000 girls and young women disappeared into military brothels. We were forced to worship Shinto gods, speak only Japanese, take on Japanese names, or there would be no rations. The Japanese admired the black cattle that had grazed Jeju's fields since long before the Joseon dynasty, that we'd revered as gods. They declared black cows Japanese and brown cows Korean. Daegu, South Korea, 1988. I am 11 years old. I asked my grandmother to tell me what our Japanese surname was. It is the only time in my life that she slaps me. Connecticut, US, 2004. My first child is born. I choose Kwon for a middle name, my grandmother's maiden name. The second name she forfeited. She dies before meeting my child. Connecticut, US, 2006. A week before my daughter is born, I dream her as a girl with long black hair strung with pearls and seaweed and wound around her head like a crown. A pearl diver brings her to me inside a mollusk. Pyeongchang, 2018. It's the eve of the Winter Olympics. The world watches as North and South march together beneath the unification flag. It's taken 60 years, but Jeju's black cows have repopulated the fields. As the Japanese teams wave and smile at the crowd, the NBC broadcaster says, "Every Korean will tell you that Japan has been an example of culture, so important in their own transformation." When asked his thoughts on reparations, the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe tells reporters, "We should not drag this problem into the next generation." So I grew up as in a Southern Baptist church in Michigan. It was not an enjoyable experience for me. So I have quite a few poems about that experience. And so I don't know if any of you, if you have experience in an evangelical church, then you know there's certain things that happen in the church, like Sunday evening youth group, Wednesday night Bible study. There's just these cultural kind of rituals, and in addition to that. And one of the things that we used to do as young people, I think maybe started at like 8 years old, is they would show us these videos about the rapture and the tribulation, where people were acting out like their parents disappearing, people lining up to be killed at a guillotine. And we were like 8. So that also explains why I became a poet, I think, in some ways. So this is called Agnostic as a Young Girl. Every Sunday evening, a small group of us came back to church for more. Our parents, in a lamp-lit room downstairs, took Bible study while we, the children of God's most devout, gathered in the fellowship hall to watch videos on the tribulation and rapture, to learn that eventually we would run out of chances, that even God had his limits. It was the year of my first kiss behind the stairs, when the pastor's meek, orange-haired son was kind enough not to turn away from me. One night, I asked the youth pastor to rewind the tape back to the moment when a non-believer wakes up to his entire family disappeared. Their clothing and shoes in heaps on the ground, not ghosts, just gone. For a full minute, I examined this young actor's face, rooting for him like my life depended on it, saying over and over, I believe, I believe. Okay, you know what? I'm going to read this one because my father's birthday just passed. So April 1st is my father's birthday. And growing up, I grew up mostly in Michigan. I spent my middle school years in South Korea and every summer of my life as a child. But mostly I grew up in a suburb of Detroit. And we would go camping in northern Michigan. So this is a poem about the summer before my father disappeared. Like, he left, we didn't know what happened to him. He was a missing person, and then we got a letter from prison. This poem is called Blind Fish. In the photograph, wildflowers everywhere. I am 7 years old. In northern Michigan, sand shifts with my father's mood. We are standing in the lake, water shimmering around our ankles. Minnows in their nervous schools dart, always toward each other, breathing in what other species breathe out below the surface. That summer, I believed all fish blind, guided through the world by their instincts, feeling their way home through dark waters. I don't know where this idea came from or why I believed it. I believed, too, in my father, how he towered over everything. In the photograph, he wears a beige bucket hat, fishing lures fastened to its brim. He smiles widely as though he's told the cleverest joke. I smile, too, because he's pleased with me, and he is so rarely pleased with anything. In a year, he will leave us. Signs are everywhere. Minnows darting blindly, bait dangling on the line, the sun radiant as pain. Me squinting up at him. how the world can look so bright just before it catches fire. Okay. This is a poem for my sister. So in 2017, I lost my 11-year-old nephew to suicide. And 2 months later, his mother, my only sibling, also took her life. And after I wrote Night Swim, which was the book that was about that specific experience, I was having a really hard time writing anything, like trying to figure out what comes next, which a lot of us do, I think, like when we're done with a project or, and my friend Emily very kindly invited me to stay at her house. We did like a little mini retreat with a few other writers, and I wrote a chapbook, which I will never publish because I don't want to. But there are a couple poems from the chapbook that I put in here, and the chapbook was called In This Version. And it's like a reimagining of certain events, or like what if, what if this, what if that? And it was a way of transitioning from Night Swim into being able to write again. This is Fairy Tale from that chapbook. In this version, I do not bury you in the black dress, the one with the tags still on that you hung on the outside of your closet door. A dress you would not have been caught dead in when you were alive. Do you see what I did there? Death is absurd enough as it is, so I guess I'm sorry for making bad jokes, but lately they're all I've got. You were never one to laugh at my jokes unless they were truly funny. I could count on this about you. I counted on your rage, too. It struck like lightning, and I was the cowering tree. You could always quit smoking without trying, either total control or none at all. I read a poem this week about two women laughing over what to wear to a funeral, as if a funeral is an event, like a tea party or a concert. How should we do our hair? What is the right outfit to wear to honor a life? What shoes? In this version, I bury you in your favorite Halloween costume, the Cheshire Cat one with a grin painted on where your mouth is. I adorn your body with every piece of jewelry you own instead of saving it for your daughter like you ask. Once upon a time, my sister was born. She was loved in all of the ways she longed to be loved. A doctor prescribed the medications that would finally help her, and she didn't ghost him. She never bought the gun, never stored it loaded in her nightstand. Her child never found it. Julia, in this version, I don't bury you at all. So I haven't not read that one out loud in a long time. Okay, let's read a poem about my mother not drinking. Which sometimes I think she should take it up. It'd be helpful for her. This one is called Even the Moon. My mother has never had alcohol and never finishes her dessert. I know, it's funny, right? Sometimes I wonder if this is why we can't understand each other. She wants a daughter so small the night won't claim her. I want to know a version of her that consumes more than her body wants, insists on being uncomfortably full. I devour the sweets she rejects with a wave of the hand and an, oh, I couldn't possibly. Have you ever seen a bird pick through a bowl of seeds? pecking and scattering them with such fury that there are more on the cage floor than in her own belly? Have you ever met a mother who was not a cage? In her womb, I swelled as close to the surface of her as I could without breaking through. Maybe I'm the way I am because I need to know how much my seams can hold. Even the moon slivers herself. How am I doing on time? My sense of time just like goes when I'm reading.
You've got 7 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the only pantoum that I have ever written successfully. It's called Pantoum for My Father. This also takes place in Michigan. In his goodbye note, my father blamed his parents for his inability to love us. At his bump shop on 14 Mile Road, he lowered cars on a platform. I loved to watch their steel bodies, dented or cracked, disappear. The shaft where the platform had been. At his bump shop on 14 Mile Road, he lowered cars on a platform. Sometimes I'd stand too close to the edge and hover over the shaft where the platform had been. I imagined him pulling me back to safety. Sometimes I'd stand too close to the edge and hover over. I stood at precipices and dared gravity to overcome me. I imagined him pulling me back to safety. My father and I are not unalike. I stood at precipices and dared gravity to overcome me. I've met a version of myself who doesn't need anyone. My father and I are not unalike. In his goodbye note, my father blamed his parents for his inability to love us. Okay, I'm going to end with the happy poem. So, because I don't really know if it is. So I'm an addict in recovery through a 12-step fellowship. I celebrated 11 years in January. Thank you. And my father is also an addict who's not in recovery. So it's all connected, you know. This poem is called Hymn to Church Basements, and it's from a little chapbook that I made in 2022 that was published through, like right after COVID, I wrote 3 books. It was so nice. I mean, not nice to have COVID, but it was just nice to like be home, you know, and have space. But I got really sick of the fact that I could remember every Baptist hymn that I've ever heard, like every single word of it. And I was like, why are there no hymns about, like, I don't know, drug addicts? You know? I was like, well, I'm going to write one. And that's what I did. This is called Hymn to Church Basements. This world loves a grand cathedral, its righteousness and pulpit, purported sanctuary of redemption, holy spire and stilled saints, history of fire and painted glass, pews where congregants pray and worship, troubled by questions they hope someone has answers to. They wait on their knees to be forgiven. But where are the songs of praise for church basements, that lower level, that rock bottom room, sunken and reverent with flickering lights, water-stained carpets, water-stained ceilings and coffee-stained carpets, its full moon of chairs that appear every night at 8 o'clock because a crackhead made a commitment. We don't kneel in church basements. Instead, we squat against walls and stand arms crossed in doorways. We sit slouched and messy, look each other in the eyes and say, I am an addict and I don't want to die. And oh God, is this not a kind of miracle? I prefer my angels banged up and salty, chubby from eating cookies instead of shooting dope. They pull splinters from their wings, hug the newcomer too tightly, shake their heads at me when I don't raise my hand to share. No matter how tough I try to look, no matter how long it takes, they say, keep coming back, kid. Tonight, the addict who overdosed last month, the one who had to be revived with Narcan, is making the coffee. Thank you.